A guest all the way from the Uganda Debt Network, and we must understand a little bit about what happened. Now, the Uganda Debt Network conducted a survey trying to understand the transparency, the budget transparency on the African continent, and findings indicate that Uganda was the best in Africa with a transparency rate of 58%. Yes, I know what you must be thinking. The reality is that the findings in the African continent and East Africa at large put South Africa at 87%, emerging as the best in Africa. But Uganda was actually ranked as the second, just to make that correction, and it was the best in East Africa. Now, this was after scoring 58% budget transparency ranking. Now, we must at the end of the day ask ourselves, what does this mean for you as a voter, for you as a taxpayer? But more importantly, what does it mean for Uganda? Is there hope to improve? Saying that we are the best in Africa, does this actually reflect, the economic conditions on ground, the service delivery on ground? That's why today we are very happy to have the programs coordinator, the programs director of budget survey, and that is at the Uganda Debt Network. The gentleman is called Mr. Julius Kapwepwe. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Perfect. Now, are you okay before I go on?
Yes, absolutely okay.
That is very fine. Now,
Uganda would say katonda chakuma.
Yes. Very interesting. You know what's making me laugh, Mr. Julius? Yeah. These surveys are done basing upon interviews, and I would imagine the various models you did to carry out the research. And the rankings are making Uganda the best in East Africa and the second in Africa, and yet many would argue that Uganda has a number of loopholes in its budget. Now, to start with, tell me a little bit about the Uganda Debt Network and its mandate in this particular survey.
Okay, thank you. Uganda Debt Network, we are a national level policy advocacy organization that works to generate expertise, professional expertise that influences public policy in Uganda, especially in Uganda. But that journey at times, in fact all the time, takes us to communities across the country so that we are evidence-based. And that's the discussion we shall have later on, the, yes, the realities we are talking about Uganda having been the second best in Africa.
And so, the best in East Africa.
And the best in East Africa. We are going to come to that discussion, obviously. So we visit communities, we interact with communities, we live in communities to have real issues on ground,
right,
concerns, and what is working where, in particular regard to government actions or misactions, in particular regard to budget financing or lack of the financing, in particular regard to service delivery and accountability standards as provided for in the various instruments, the legal regime in Uganda, the policies, and the attendant institutions to make sure that that happens.
Right.
That journey also takes us to national level, that we don't just have the evidence and we keep with it under our ambits, that it comes to inform national policy processes. So Parliament necessarily is very key to us, Ministry of Finance, for the obvious central position that it occupies in the public finance management realm, is at our center. The Inspectorate of Government is at our center. The office of the RDC in the case of local governments is at our center as the chief monitor of government programs, amongst other reasons for which those institutions are established.
Right.
But also that journey takes us to the East African community level. Why? Uganda is a member, is a signatory to the East African Community Protocol. As such, and going forward, we think that as Arusha gets stronger, some of the supra-institutions will prevail over what national governments can or cannot do.
Right.
So we necessarily keep an eye. But also at continental level, Uganda is a signatory to the African Union, various signatories, various instruments. If you looked at Africa Agenda 2063, which is the development kind of pathway that us as Africans, through our political leaders, especially through our political leaders, have committed to, will have an implication on what is delivered back home in Uganda or not. Similarly, at the global level. So we also have a footing at the global level. And that's why in this particular case, we'll be indicating that we've done this work as Uganda Debt Network in conjunction with International Budget Partnership, which is resident in the United States of America.
Right.
So that is because if you looked at an institution like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, the European Union, we draw funding in form of loans or even grants to finance our programs back home. A program like Youth Livelihood Program, which is a local program in Uganda, is partly financed by some of those institutions.
Right.
Skilling Uganda, which is a program in education, where we are trying to, the countries, as a country, we are trying to rehabilitate say, and expand, say, Bukalasa Technical Institute for Agriculture in Ruwero, current Ruwero district.
Right.
If you looked at the pieces of work going on at the Chigumba Petroleum Institute, if you looked at work that is happening at Kiema in Bunyoro, if you looked at the work that is happening at Aduku in Apach and Lira areas, that is what we are talking about. Part of the money is out of what is locally generated here through taxes and non-tax avenues. We shall explain them.
Right.
But also the other bit comes from loans and grants that come from the other side internationally, as I have kind of quickly highlighted. So that's who we are as Uganda Debt Network. While we are Uganda-based, we also work across a different of at various levels. Wow. So that we are able to contribute to policy and financing of government programs.
Interesting, interesting. In other words, you engage a number of other stakeholders.
Yes.
This is quite interesting. And you did tap a little bit into this budget transparency survey.
Yes.
Could you tell me why was it conducted? You know, why should Manya Kwenkuru in Bunyaruguru be concerned?
Yeah, Nyakwenkuru or Mukakas, they would say in Kabare or Jaja in Uganda, in Uyikwe in Uganda,
Dada in Busoga,
in Chana Mukaka, yes, and Baba in Namutumba, is precisely because our mandate allows us to do so, but also we think a budget policy is one of the most important instruments in public finance management. It is too important that we simply can't leave that discussion to the bureaucrats in government and politicians.
Right.
That an ordinary person, Mwananchi, you and I, need to know what is happening. If a bridge has been proposed in the case of the district and the Bunyaruguru area at Chambra Bridge, and government has said we are going to commit 300 million shillings for this Chambra Bridge repairs, the ordinary citizen needs to know that that is happening.
Right.
That the Minister for Works, General Katumba Wamala, cannot monitor every single bridge in the country where government has taken money. It is possibly untenable. So that it is then incumbent upon Eramanzan Kwizera in Katerera, who lives nearby and comes, and somebody from Monjera for whom the bridge will be serving, and the person from Chawakara whom the bridge will be passing, to pass her bananas and other things to the market to get money, livestock to the market to get money.
Right.
You know, then they need to check that if this is the quality of a bridge we expect, because there are usually descriptions of what should be delivered, then we ensure in our non-technical kind of being that is happening. If we are not clear, that we alert the district engineer in Rubirizi and to come and check with us. That we can even alert Kampala authorities at Ministry of Works to come and check with us and see what is happening. So that's where we are coming from. And as such, the open budget survey is a global kind of standard that has been developed by civil society actors to be able to check on government, on how governments are involving citizens, how involving mwananchi, in particular regard 3 pillars,
right,
or 3 areas.
Right.
And the 3 areas are budget transparency, budget oversight,
okay,
and public participation.
Okay.
And if time allows, I'll just touch on each.
Dig deep, because I feel we are hearing tongues now.
Yes, speaking in tongues, we shall simplify the tongues from the pastoral approach to our respective dialects, Acholi and Ngakaramajong, and so that our people we can move together.
Right.
Now, I've said it is a global standard.
Yes, please.
I have said it is a methodology or an approach that is being promoted by civil society organizations,
right,
across the world. In this particular case, the study was done across 117 countries, okay, globally, across the world, in other words, of which Uganda was number 36.
Okay.
If you are number 1, you are the best. If you are number 36, you are 36th. If you are number 117, you are the worst. Mm-hmm. Okay? So Uganda was number 36 globally.
Globally.
Okay?
Yes.
The world has about 155 countries, including
if you count South Sudan, then
inclusive of South Sudan, yes, including the smallest countries in the world. Mm. So it was not all the countries, but rather 117. The other bit is that this is an exercise whose results we are releasing for 2019. The exercise was done between September and December, right, over a 3 or 4 months period. We go through, we have, under each of those 3 parameters I have indicated, citizens' participation, okay, or public participation in the budget process, transparency, budget, right, transparency, and budget oversight. Right. We have a number of indicators which we check. For instance, under public participation are a whole 108 questions or indicators that we check, upon which we draw a conclusion. Okay? Right. Under budget, under transparency, similarly, about 10 indicators or questions that we check, and then we give a conclusion. Similarly, and so it's not that all the questions are the same across the spectrum. Right. So it is also possible that the degree of bias is reduced. Why? Because for every response that is picked, there must be verifiable evidence. Verifiable evidence in research, as you know, Ugandans and I, is that if you said that Sam is taller than Flavia, then we bring a measuring yard. Okay. And then we can say, please stand here. What is your number of meters? You stand here. What is the number of meters? Right. 3 meters. Flavia is 3 meters. John is 3 meters. Flavia is 2.5 meters. If another person came and did a similar measurement, would come to the same result. Right. That's what we are saying that it is evidence-based. Okay. If we said that government allowed citizens to participate in making input into the budget, then we would want to see evidence. Part of the evidence could be attendance list that people came. The second evidence could be that within the report of that particular meeting, whose input is captured. So we go to that level of detail and are able to. So in brief, that's kind of the methodology, right, and that I can talk about. So now if you could let me talk about, when we say public transparency, what exactly are we talking about? Please, shoot. One of the key areas there is that globally it has been accepted by public finance practitioners that there are certain 8 key documents
Okay.
which, if citizens are accessing, can have a whole impression or a whole understanding or picture about their budgets for a given financial year, for their local government, for their sub-county, Mkongoro sub-county in Kumi, or Pajimur in Nebi, but can also have an understanding of their district budget, of Kalangara district budget,
Okay.
or Buvuma Island district budget, but can also have an understanding of the national budget for a given financial year.
Right.
In this particular case, 2019 is what we are looking at, and
Okay.
the previous year. So 8 documents. One is called a pre-budget statement.
Right.
The second one is called executive budget proposal. The third one is called approved budget. The other one is called a citizen's budget,
Right.
number 4.
Right.
The number 5 is called in-year budgets.
Okay.
In-year is like quarterly report in the Ugandan language. Number 6 is mid-year review report,
Okay.
or half-year performance report.
Okay.
You can hear mid-year.
Media. Yes.
The other one is year-end report, or end of financial year reporting.
Okay.
Then the other one is the audit report. So I could, just an example of a pre-budget statement that is prepared by Ministry of Finance and Bank of Uganda to guide cabinet, whose chief is His Excellency President Museveni,
Okay.
for cabinet. Then cabinet looks at, from there it initiates what we call like a national budget framework paper. You know, discuss that I think in the next financial year and over the 3 years, this is where we want to put a lot of energy.
Okay.
Programming energy and financing energy. If we want to expand universal primary education, and we still know that there are children who sit under trees, who sit on stones, as we have seen in Abiratuk in Karamoja, as we have seen in Agago in Acholi,
Okay.
then we will need to focus more money here. More here and lesser here.
Right.
Then those proposals come to Parliament. So that is the executive budget proposal. From
Okay.
cabinet, it comes Parliament. Now, the enacted budget is basically the approved budget. I think to Uganda know more about the approved budget that,
Yes.
that Parliament has discussed back and forth with cabinet, with sectors. Here we agree, please shift money here, take it to Ministry of Works, reduce the other money, it is redundant in agriculture, take it to water and sanitation, the other one should go to environment, and finally then there is an approval process.
Right.
And that process usually happens between February and March of,
Right.
of any year.
Okay.
Okay? And when that has been done, then finally we see the president come out in June to give a speech, what we usually call the budget speech.
The budget speeches.
The budget speech ideally is to say, I sanction, as the chief executive officer of the country, I sanction the proposals in this budget for the following financial year.
Right.
So June 30th, a financial year ends. 1st July, just the next day, a new financial year begins. So as I speak now, like now we are already in about a week or two of a new financial year.
Okay.
Whose budget speech was in June. Yes. So that's what we are talking. Then implementation begins.
Okay.
So implementation begins, and after every quarter, there are kind of performance reports, which the sectors or the officials, government officials, bring back. You have been running all over implementing. How far are you?
Right.
Before Minister of Finance can release new money to go into the next quarter. So those reports are what we are calling in-year reports.
Okay.
A similar process happens at half year of implementation, which ideally is at December now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
December, October, December is the second quarter of the financial year.
Okay.
So that is already half year, because the first quarter then is July to September, then October to December. Those are really the 2 quarters, and that makes half a year.
Right.
So there we expect a half-year performance report called in-year report in this jargon, if you want. But half-year,
or what you're calling the media.
Yes, or media kind of performance report, half-year performance report.
Right.
So that's what we are talking about. Then the implementation continues until the financial year ends. When that happens, audit takes place. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Audit takes place. Audit in Uganda is a business of the Auditor General. So in budget and which I also touch when I come to budget oversight. So at budget transparency, we are asking, are these 8 documents accessible to citizens? Mwananchi, ordinary, you and I, if I walked out of this studio, Smart 24, and I want to have some knowledge about some of these budget details, can I easily access that information? The answer could be yes. In the case of Uganda, the answer is yes, because there is a budget website.
Right.
Budget website means that with increased investment into internet and all these phones and smartphones and computers and all this technological advancement that is happening, you don't have to first go and run to a Ministry of Finance when you are coming from Kabong. That you are coming from Mitiana, from Namtamba, and then you have to first come to Kampala to look for a budget for your district. That you can just go on the internet and then you check, and then that information should come.
Right.
So regardless of where you are, as long as you have access. So what we check is what type of publicly available information is it of these 8.
Okay.
The other one is where is it available. So hard copies, when there is evidence of hard copies, you put a tick or a mark.
Right.
When there is evidence of having been uploaded on a website and you can check online and get it, you put a mark. If there is any other, you can check and put a mark.
Right.
The other one quickly under that I could look at is what we call the citizens budget. One of the 8 documents I talked about. A citizens budget is, government is expected, having gone through the budget approvals, finally to produce like a synthesized and simplified document.
Right.
Summary of the big budget documents, which some have seen are 3,000 pages, 5,000 pages.
Yes.
But a citizen's budget is a summary, maybe 20 pages or so. What is contained there? It will say that for us, people of Chiyindi in Wikwe, going to the islands, there is going to be a new ferry. Right. Government has promised a new ferry. And that's all we want. We don't want the jargons of it came from African money from African Development Bank, these details, and this was the process. No. That has been done by you, the technocrats, who are paid by your taxes, that you do that.
Right.
And thank you for doing a good work. So now for me, what I want, what is, Muganda would say, muri muchikati for me. What is in this budget for me now? So that's where those summaries are. We shall do the Kampala, where I say, Kiriandongo, Karuma Road. Right. It will be repaired. Right. And that's what I want to know. There is going to be 4 classroom new block construction at Kaweweta Primary School. And that's what I need to know at that moment. So that simplified version is what we are talking about and what we assess. Then under public participation, public participation, we are asking, those processes are good as provided for by the legal and policy regimes of the country. Right. In the case of Uganda, the Public Finance and Management Act of 2015. In respect to the Constitution of Uganda, Article 17 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda of 1995, of course, as amended, Article 17 says that a Ugandan, you have, amongst many other areas, that you have a right, you have a duty, you are duty bound to pay tax, but you also have an obligation to follow the money.
To know where it is going.
To know where it is going.
Right.
That by not doing that, you are creating a disservice both to the state, to the government of the day, and to yourself.
Right.
Okay? In Article 38, it says that every Ugandan is free, has got the freedom to influence government affairs, to influence the thinking of government. Okay? It's not me who wrote it, I found it. Our forefathers and foremothers gladly gave it to us as Ugandans.
Yes.
But we must leave it. That influencing can be by way of 3 areas. It says it shall be by you as an individual. You can come as an individual, say you appear before Parliament, and you say, this is what I think about what you are thinking.
Right.
It could also be through your member of, or it could be through a representative, say a member of Parliament, say a councillor. But it could also be through civic organizations, Uganda Debt Network, and many others. Chabakara Farmers Association,
right.
Kabongo Village Savings Association, Moroto People's Cooperative, any Uganda Media Association, Uganda Media Owners Association, that we have a concern about what you want to do, Mr. or Madam, Uganda Communications Commission, and this is our input. That freedom is given.
Right.
So that's what we look at in case of the budget. Against that freedom, are Ugandans bringing their views?
Okay.
Remember, this is also against kind of an ideological background, that if you don't participate, someone will participate for you.
Okay.
That if you are not involved in the planning, it is highly possible that the planning will not take consideration of you.
Right.
So as the private school owners in Uganda need to see where is money for education next financial year going.
Okay.
How are you catering for us private school owners?
Right.
That if you don't, you'll find the government has put a tax on your business, on your service, on your contribution. But if you watch early enough, you may say, no, I think that service is not desirable for this reason. Okay. We are filling a gap which you, government, should have filled. Government, under the Constitution, you must provide your citizens with education, including through adult learning.
Right.
But because you can't, as the private sector actors are building schools, private schools, to complement your effort. That's a good thing.
Okay.
So now you are imposing a tax on us. That one, we don't accept it. But if you are not part of that conversation, then you will not notice, you will realize when it is late. So in public participation, that's what we are saying. At Parliament, how many people come to make a contribution? At local councils, how many people come to make real contributions? Not just at the end of the day for budget speeches and dancing ceremonies. We dance Amagunja and dance Ndomboro, then we go home.
Yeah.
That what contribution have you brought? That's what we look at. So we ask, did people participate? If the answer is yes, we put a tick.
That's
then
one
the next bit,
satisfied.
Yes, the next bit is, where is the evidence that they participated? There is an attendance form. Okay. Where is the other evidence that they participated in, say, the regional consultative budget processes, where Ugandans spend a lot of money, a lot of time, and other resources through our leaders to be able to pick views from different places. The people of, I remember, like last financial year, for instance, the people in Nakasongora area, Ruero, Ngoma, Chivoga area, their River Mayanja adjacent communities, said we would wish to see a leather factory in our area. Why? Because they are big livestock keepers, and they would want to see to invest more and get more money for their communities. So is that in that financial year, if you have not followed through, you will not even, in the first place, it will not come aboard because you have not put pressure. So those are some of the considerations we look at. Then the third one, which is budget oversight. Budget oversight, we mainly look at two institutions The methodology looks at two institutions. One is Parliament.
Okay.
Number two is the Office of the Auditor General.
Right.
I'll give just a quick example.
Right.
Office of the Auditor General. We would want to see, and it will be part of my recommendations later on when,
Yes,
if time allows.
Yes, please.
But otherwise, for now, I'll say that if you have an Office of the Auditor General in Soroti, you have an Office of the Auditor General in Fort Portro, take care of the Rwenzori area. You have an Office of the Auditor General in Mukono, take care of the central Buganda areas.
Right.
And you want to go to a given sub-county, a given district, to Ikwe district, would want to see the Auditor General through announcements on radios, through smart television and many other channels of communication. Alert people of Buikwe that we shall be coming to inspect as the auditors,
okay,
the condition of the road from Buikwe trading, from Buikwe town,
right,
to Chiyindi or to Katosi, that was built or either by UNRA or by other funders, say through the district mechanism.
Right.
So that then there is an opportunity for you at Office of the Auditor General to listen from the Mwananchi. The Mwananchi have a lot of information which would be important to your auditing.
Okay.
Beyond what the technocrats or some of the technocrats, some of the bad apples,
yes,
amongst the technical class, who will simply do what you would call paper accountability.
Okay.
The paper, all the papers are very nicely done. 1 + 1 definitely is 2, and it is not 3. There is no error.
Right.
But you go on ground, and the bridge is not there, and the road is not there, and the quality of the road is not there, and the Mwananchi know. Okay. So we are saying that they would be able to give you additional information that then you'd use as part of your report to have a comprehensive picture and feedback. So if the Mwananchi are not participating in your audit processes, if you keep them up there and they are just technical, square root and all these different things you have seen, get tables and do binomial equations, then in our checking during this methodology, we put a 0.
Okay.
There was no citizens' participation.
Right.
And you can't believe how Mwananchi of Uganda have been blessed with information. They are very alert. They know, yes, contrary to what some of the people in this country think.
Right.
So we think that is an opportunity to utilize. If Parliament, we see Parliament active at the level of passing the budget. They say, no, they hold the executive. No, here, no, this word, change. But once the budget has been approved, do you ever follow to see what the money you approved is doing on ground? So that performance, when we checked, it had a very less mark.
Okay.
So it is where you see some of these marks coming from. That's the kind of highlight that I wanted to share with you.
Wow, thank you. That has been quite descriptive enough. Now, our dear viewer, let's take a very, very short break. When we get back, we will try to understand whether the findings that have been explained to us reflect the service delivery on ground. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Smart 24. Smart business.
Life's most important memories are made together. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, and funerals. Yet we find our lives in a time where staying healthy means staying at a distance. Smart 24 TV would like to thank you for doing your part to help flatten the curve of the coronavirus by staying home and missing out on important milestones. By staying home and social distancing, you are ensuring better care for our community. Without these sacrifices, our health system would not be able to treat everyone who would be affected by this virus. By social distancing now, you are ensuring that there will be more of those cherished memories to make later. We can't wait to celebrate them with you. For our Ministry of Health members and all health service providers who cannot stay home for our safety, we are shoulder to shoulder with you on the front lines every day. There are no words to thank you for your daily commitment to service and sacrifice for others. For everyone at home, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. By staying home, you are doing your part to save lives. We cannot do without you.
Smart 24. Smart Business.
Well, you are still watching the Smart 24 TV here at the Business Information Center. And of course, like we say, if you are unable to catch us because you're in a hurry or you have any other reason that makes you want to run away from your TV set, you can continue following us as we live stream on our Facebook page. But of course, we are also on Twitter at Smart24TV Uganda, YouTube Smart24 TV Uganda, Facebook is Smart24 TV, no space at all. If you have a question for our guest all the way from the Uganda Debt Network, and of course that is Mr. Julius Kapwepwe, if you have any question for him, please send us that message right now before he leaves the studio so that he can be able to respond to you. Now here are the highlights of what we had earlier on before we went for that break. That one, the Open Budget Transparency Survey was conducted by the Uganda Debt Network. This survey was aimed at understanding how transparent Uganda's budget system is, especially in line with the financing and the sources of finances used. Now, if you are, for example, in an area where the road has been constructed using a debt, it is important to understand your involvement in it and what it exactly means to you. These are some of the aspects that we want to look at. Okay? Now, we want to understand that Uganda, according to this survey that was conducted, Uganda was ranked 36th out of 117 countries globally. This is not really the worst, because if you, like he said, if you're number one, you're the best. If you're 117, you're the worst. But if you're 36th, you are actually somewhere okay. In Africa, South Africa was the best, okay? Then Uganda comes in as the second at 58% transparency level, okay? These are some of the things that we want to understand. By the time we say that Uganda is the best at 58, are we really that okay? Do you feel that Uganda is the best when it comes to budget survey, rather budget transparency, okay? Of course, to help us answer these and more questions is the Programs Coordinator of Budget Survey at the Uganda Debt Network, Mr. Julius Kapwepwe. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now, before we went for the break, you gave us all these eye-openers. And of course, I'll quickly get into this question of if Uganda is the second, what exactly is happening on other continents, or rather in other countries? Because if we are the best and yet we have people dissatisfied, currently they are saying you would rather change government and put an emergency government. Tell me, what's happening in other countries?
What is happening?
How bad is it?
Or how good, or rather how good is it?
Or how good is it anyway?
So how good it is that in the case of subcontinent or continent of Australia, New Zealand comes on top of the world,
okay,
in terms of budget transparency. And Brazil comes also with 81 score. Mexico comes with an 82 score.
Okay.
Those are in Latin America. But closer home, South Africa, like you said, taking lead, followed by Uganda, but there is a big distance.
Okay, do tell.
It's like you can be at this corner and somebody, a Kiprotich has already arrived the other side, when for you are still on the third lap finishing.
Right.
So while South Africa is 87 scores, for instance, Uganda comes next at 58.
Okay.
But also it is being chased by a Kenya that comes in at 50.
Right.
And Kenya is being chased by a Madagascar that comes in at 40. You've seen Madagascar and its issues around COVID,
yes,
and
it's miracle drugs.
Some of these bits.
Yes.
But also after that comes Rwanda, our neighbor here at 39 score.
Right.
Comes Tanzania at 17. Comes Burundi at 6. Comes Somalia at 3. Comes Comoros further down.
Okay.
You remember further down? at zero. In all the scores,
Zero.
There is no citizens' participation. Government decides and for the people, and then they move on.
Wow.
So that's the kind of mental impression I would wish to share with you, the viewer, but also say that that's a good thing as one school of thought,
Right.
while someone else would argue that you are one-eyed amongst the blind.
Okay.
So it will depend on which school of thought you go to.
subscribe
As
to.
Uganda Debt Network, this is the evidence we have in conjunction with other actors across the globe.
Right.
We are independent in our approaches and want to believe that anybody else if anybody else was to conduct this exercise would come with a similar score.
Okay.
Remember, in research there is a plus minus some bit of margin of error.
Right.
But that's where largely they would fall.
Right. Now,
Yes.
two things, Mr. Kapwepwe. One, we have areas, especially in the rural areas, where we have, for example, poor roads, okay, and yet a lot of money that is borrowed is claimed to go into roads. We have cases of children who are not able to access education up to now, and if they do, the education services they access are not worth even mentioning on national television. Okay? We have cases where the medical services are so bad that just recently, people are reportedly giving birth near toilet bins. Okay? I mean, to me, this all shows that there is an issue happening in the country, and yet your research, your statistics indicate, well, like you said, a good thing. Why isn't this reflected in the delivery of social services?
A good thing as one school of thought.
Okay.
And another school of thought that you could be one amongst the blind, therefore it's a bad mark anyway. And also recalling that for all the three parameters, the score, the pass mark is 60. And Uganda performs below 60 for all the three parameters.
Okay.
So the viewer can assess whether that is a good or bad thing. The other bit is that you don't even have to, in the case of roads, you don't have to run away to run for the roads that are so far away. Just here near your studios, the road is in a pathetic state.
Right.
But just next to, after this pathetic section, is a good road, which has just been tarmacked. So there is that contradiction. In fact, further ahead is a road that is under construction.
Right.
So that's the kind of trajectory you'll find across the country. That's the kind of landscape you'll find across the country in the different sectors.
Right.
It is a fact that Gulu, Achwa Bridge to Acholi Bur, that the road is brand new. It's classic. It is also a fact that from Gulu town through Anaka all the way to join the Pakwachi road from Kamdini to go to Pakwachi Bridge, that the road is brand new. But it is also a fact that the Tororo, Mbale, Soroti Road, which was just constructed about 5 years ago, tarmacked, is due for reconstruction.
Right.
So that you'll find that kind of contradiction across the spectrum.
Right.
Therefore, as an independent person, as a good Ugandan, as an objective Ugandan, you can't just say it is women giving birth to at dustbins only, like that is the picture of the country. We also know that there is a brand new women's fertility hospital
In Mulago.
in Mulago. We also knew that Mulago complex has just been rehabilitated.
Right.
Of course, the other question you could ask, which money has been used? Because a larger section of that money has been through borrowed resources from the African Development Bank and the Islamic Development Bank.
Right. But
is the facility there, which is not there? That is also the discussion we can have.
Okay.
That does not mean that new staff houses have not been constructed at Moroto Referral Hospital. But that does not mean that at Bwera, in Kasese, that the staff houses, if you looked at, I wish somebody there could share with us a picture for smart viewers to really give a comparison.
Right.
You'll find that in a pathetic state.
Right.
So there is that, the good, the bad perhaps, and the ugly somewhere. Mm-hmm. So it is a journey that has to go on.
Interesting.
So what you're asking now is, can I have budget transparency here at, say, in the case of Uganda now at 58 kind of score against poor service delivery? The answer is yes. And I'll just give you perhaps one or two examples. Just some two examples. I'll give you an example. If you looked at Mubende, Kakumiro, Kagadi Road, it is possible that we can go to the site and we find kind of something like a billboard. You could say a billboard or graphical presentation of messages about that bridge, about that road, 107-kilometer road that is under construction.
Okay.
Sections of it have been completed, and it's really very nice, very smooth, and opening up that hinterland in terms of production and productive capacity, depending on how we organize the communities there to improve livelihood.
Right.
That billboard, it is possible it will show that this is Emubende, Kakumiro, Kagadi Road. That the contractor is so and so.
Right.
That the number of kilometers to be covered are 107. That the money involved is so much, billions. That the source of funding is this one. It is also possible that that information is not being used by Ugandans in that part of Uganda to actually check whether the contractor has delivered the specifications of that road. Because also it is where a bit of cheating happens. That the person was supposed to do, say, 8 culverts at Mr. Mugulumira's, near Mugulumira's residence before you reach Kakumiro Trading Center. Right. But the contractor didn't. Just powered some soils quickly and disappeared. Right. Who else will know other than the people, the communities adjacent to such a facility? Therefore, would be able to raise the alarm and say, from what we see
on the billboard,
from what it is also possible that the site engineer has detailed specifications, like I'm talking about culverts, that the road shall be 7 meters wide, and it will be these specifications. Some of them simple ones for ordinary people to understand. Leave alone the very technical afsarta and all these, when they mean an array of tarmac. There is afsarta and put square roots and all. Those may be difficult to comprehend by an ordinary person. Right. But if I see in a document that there is supposed to be 8 culverts which are metallic, of 2 meters wide, radius of 2 meters, at Mr. Mugulumira's residence before Kakumiro Trading Center, if you simply bring a tractor and cover up, I can be able to tell as an ordinary person that something is not being delivered as promised. Right. So it is possible that that information is publicly available, online, on site, and in hard copies. But the Ugandans on the other side, who are the direct beneficiaries or recipients of such a government facility, are not using that data to be able to check that we are getting standard roads, that we are getting standard primary schools, that our medicine is arriving at the health facilities and staying there for what it is supposed to do. In other words, again, it's contrary to Article 17 of the Constitution that I talked about. That the civic awakening, the consciousness, as Karl Marx calls it, remains weak. In some of the other countries we looked at, like Sweden, like Denmark, you'll find the scores are comparable in terms of say budget transparency and citizens' participation. But for them, the reason could be that they trust their systems, that they trust those in charge, the bureaucrats, the politicians, to deliver what government has promised. Yes, sir. In some parts of the world, including around here, that may be a debatable story.
Interesting.
Therefore, people need to come and check. In some languages in Uganda, they call it biafandumu. That things are happening, but you live in Jerusalem, as the Bible says, but you do not know what is happening. Yes, when Jesus had just resurrected.
Yes.
I think you were not yet born, definitely. Even Maya wasn't born. So,
as we wind up, please.
So Ugandans should seek to get information from their leaders, from their councillors, from the Gomborora chief, from the office of the RDC as the chief monitor in the district. What is government planning for us this year? When? Then they can give their views. The borehole should not be at this point, it should go to the other valley.
Right.
Otherwise, then you have a valley dam where when it is a rainy season, the water simply passes the other side. Because the person who dug up the dam was from Bale and is working in Kakumiro. But if you had involved the people of Kakumiro at that material point, they know that water passes here. When you dig here, you won't miss it.
Yes.
The dam will fill during the rainy season for our livestock.
Interesting.
So that's precisely what we are talking about. Civic awakening can make us score better results in 2022 when we are again going to do this exercise. Because every 2 years, we kind of do an assessment. Have things changed? Have things worsened? Is there reflection and evidence for improvement?
Right.
Otherwise, you, the taxpayer, you keep dishing out your money to the state without knowing what your money is actually resulting into that benefits you and I.
Right.
And that is, somebody would call it sacrilegious. It is sachirrego.
Oh, okay.
You must do your part, you must wake up, we contribute to the authorities and challenge them to improve the status of being of our country. If not, then the poverty situation, the credit ranking by those who would wish to bring money here as investors, when they look at these figures, then, let me go to South Africa. It seems there is better sobriety compared to other places of the world. Let me go to New Zealand. Let me go to Brazil. You see?
Interesting.
So it is important that we are vigilant for our children, for ourselves, to make sure that the state of affairs of this country improves for our own good.
Interesting. Now, Mr. Kapwepe, I like that you have brought in the issue of state of affairs, and I feel in the next 2 minutes as we close up this show, you should give us a picture into Uganda's debt status, especially given that the powers that be have already declared Uganda's debt structure unbearable, that a time is going to come when we cannot meet our obligation, our debt obligation. You know, I'm cautious not to mention some of these powers that
yes, but I would demand mention them because I am evidence-based, like I told you earlier on.
Perfect.
Yes.
So give me a picture and tell us how extreme the situation is in less than a minute, please.
The situation is ugly.
Okay.
Let's implore our leaders stop the borrowing. First, put our house in order. For every 5 shillings collected in form of what you pay Ugandans, you and I, as taxes, 2 goes to financing other people's debts, which we acquired. That money would have gone to improving our primary school and giving us a better police kind of services. The other bit, to give you a picture quickly, is I'll just take a sample of just one day. The current parliament, on the 25th of June, this year 2020, it was a Thursday. Government, the executive, made 5 requests before parliament for approval of loans. One was by Uganda Development Bank to borrow $16 million from the European Investment Bank. That's the bank of the Europeans. $10 million from International Islamic Trade Finance Corporation. $20 million from OPEC Fund. That's the petroleum, the people
all producing
petroleum. And many more. There was a proposal to borrow from Kuwait, $19.8 million on the same day from Kuwait Fund. So what does that kind of picture give you? There is a bit of, we think, recklessness, and we need to implore our leadership to put a break. Don't run for other people's money, even at individual level, before you have prudently utilized yours.
Right.
Use yours more carefully. When it is not enough, you can even suspend some of the things, and until you get money that is yours next season.
Right.
At Christmas time, when you want to buy a new dress and the money is 3 dresses and it's not enough, you buy one. That would be the most thing to do. You reduce on wasteful expenditure of government.
And yet some economists would argue that the country cannot develop without debt.
The problem,
especially infrastructure development.
That's also a myth. But the point is, the problem is not borrowing. Borrowing has never been a problem. Sustainable borrowing is what we talk about.
Right.
Prudent borrowing.
Right.
Borrowing for things that are worthwhile.
Right.
If I picked some 50,000 from you here and I want to do something, it could save the day out of the situation.
Right.
But if I just borrow it from you and I squander it, tomorrow I come for more, then there are problems with me.
Interesting. I really feel like we had just gotten started, but do give your closing remark and we'll look for another time to dig deeper into this debt affair.
I definitely thank Smart TV team for hosting us. I thank you for the service that you are top-notch and clear-cut service that you are offering to Ugandans, that your viewers globally.
Thank you.
Please keep it up. It is a facility all Ugandans want. It gives us employment. It gives us visibility as a country. It adds value to the economic being of this country.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And of course, those were the last words of Mr. Julius Kapwepwe, who is the programs director or programs coordinator of budget survey at the Uganda Debt Network. Now, if you've been paying attention, like he said, the situation, especially now when we talk about debt, is not really good. And we, as citizens, have an obligation, this he mentioned first, we have an obligation to participate in some of these decisions being made in line with our budget. Please, to get to understand more of this, we do obviously implore you to stay tuned to Smart 24 TV, and we'll be giving you more programming. I'm Kamwe Atshabe. Thank you for watching.
Smart 24.